Hello, welcome, and good evening.
We have a little feedback.
I think they fixed it.
This is the, bear with us, 1 second. Okay. We're good. Okay. Well, welcome and good evening to the Wakefield School Committee meeting of May 13th. We will begin this meeting as we do every meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we will read our mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing a rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Item number 6 on our agenda is public comment. Is there anyone in the studio for public comment? Maybe for other comments. Okay. WCAT, do we have anybody on Zoom for public comment?
You're good.
No? Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to item number 7, I believe we have a consent agenda.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the April 29, 2025 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the May 6, 2025 policy and communication subcommittee meeting.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? And that is 4 school committee members. School committee is a little bit light this evening. We had 3 members, Mr. Davis, Mr. Markham, and Ms. Quinn, who had other commitments, and such is spring. To align with that, we also do not have any student advisors tonight because, again, spring scheduling conflicts. So I'm sure everyone else is off doing hopefully better things. Number 8, we do have budget items. I know that we do not have Ms. Bufagna with us, but we do have a number of gifts to the district. So I believe we have some motions for those.
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $3,144 from the Wakefield Track Boosters Club, Incorporated, stipend for 1 assistant girls and boys track and field coach for the 2024-2025 spring season.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? All right.
I also move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $1,000 from Wakefield High School Girls Lacrosse, stipend for 1 assistant girls lacrosse coach for the 2024-2025 spring season.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
And move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $500 from Global Partners Alliance Energy for the Walton Elementary School STEM programs.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? And that is unanimous. Great. Thank you. Those are wonderful. Good to see spring sports are kicking off, and always in favor of school STEM. So it's nice to feel so supported from the community. Moving on to agenda number 9, Superintendent. Remarks?
Thank you very much. With the permission of the chair, I'd like to take my items out of order on the agenda.
Absolutely.
We'd like to welcome up the cast and director of Hadestown to come up and talk a little bit about their experience. Do you think we can do that? Well, we can move chairs up.
Sure.
We should have done this.
It's okay.
We have a bigger group behind you, so we can leave some chairs. Yeah, so that saves us some.
We need to thank you so much for coming. We greatly appreciate it. And I was told that a number of the cast members couldn't make it tonight because they have prior commitments. So please extend to them our gratitude for the amazing work in this production. I think, as I shared with you when I came into the studio, I think one of the very best student productions that I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for a little while. So really, really appreciate all that you've done. We're hoping that you could just share a little bit about the experience, because I think we have some questions as well.
Sure, we'll have our seniors go. So, Jalak, Lizzie, when do you want to start? Just tell them your role.
So, if we could you can take the mic off the stand if it's easier, and you could pass it over and pass it back if that works.
Okay. Hi. Hi. My name is Lizzie, and I am the co-president of the theater department here, and I played Persephone in our production of Hadestown. And it was a lot of fun. It was definitely one of my favorite shows that we've ever put on. We started the rehearsal process very early in the season. We started it like in the wintertime, and I definitely think that it paid off. It's a very difficult show, and we were one of the first in the country to like put the show on because the rights became available this year. So it's very exciting that we had the honor to do that. And we had a lot of people help us during the process. We had our choreographer, Erica, and we had another vocal coach, Kate. And then obviously we have Miss Morrell, our vocal director, and Mr. K and Becky Jo, our directors. And I'm just really grateful that we were able to put on such an amazing show for our senior year. And I'll give it to Jalak now.
Hello, I'm Jalak. I'm the vice president of theater, and I played Orpheus in the show. Yeah, this was probably one of my most favorite shows we've ever done. It was so fun, and I'm really happy that we started the process really early. I think we started in like January, and we actually really needed that amount of time, so I'm thankful we had that. The show is also really cool because our set was completely designed by Audrey Dick over there, and our costumes were completely designed by Ellie Leon. So I think it's super cool that students were able to like run this show, which was pretty cool. Another like personal experience that I really loved about the show is I got to learn to play an instrument. I got to play the guitar, and I know several other people also got to learn instruments, and I think that was really fun to do for a show like this. Also the story, like this is one of my favorite musicals ever because I think the story is just so captivating. So I'm really happy that we were able to do this and have this great experience.
Yeah, so they talked about how I worked on the set. It was a really fun process. I haven't really had the opportunity to like create my own full thing before, so that was incredible. I was working with Ellie a lot on like how the costumes and the set would work together, and it was really great to collaborate with her, especially because we're both gonna pursue those fields in college.
Hi, I did the costumes for Hadestown, and I think I started working on them in like November when we found out, because this show is like such an amazing and complex project. So I was really excited to do all of that. It was a really amazing opportunity. I was able to build a lot of things for it and sew a lot of stuff. So it was great, like experiencing how to run like a costume department and how my designs can become like real things.
I'm Michaela. I was a worker in Hadestown. I am a part of the theater department, but I really only do musicals, and this was like literally one of my favorite shows so far. It was so much fun, and it was really fun because even though I was in the ensemble, like the ensemble got to do so much. Like we were on stage constantly in the show, and it was just a really fun experience.
Hi, I'm Lucy, and I played Eurydice in Hadestown. Like Jalak said, like this is one of my favorite musicals ever, and one of hers too. It's just like such an amazing show. The story, and then the set and the costumes being like brought to life. It was amazing. The letters were so cool. I thought that was such a cool concept. But the show is like super vocally demanding, and like the movement, everything. It came together so like flawlessly in the end, but it was a lot of work. Like everyone said, we started in like early January, but the process was so amazing, and in the end was so incredibly rewarding, and I had so much fun.
Hi, I'm Naya. I played one of the Fates. Honestly, for me, this show was a lot about like team building, I'd say, like especially for the character I was given. I played that alongside 2 other people who, and our voices are very different, but we had to spend a lot of time like working on blending our voices together and like being able to harmonize and sing a lot of like pretty challenging harmonies. And honestly, that was like such a fun and rewarding part of the show and the process, because I feel as though a lot of the like songs we've done and a lot of the direction we've had with the music directors and Mr. K and everybody has really helped us grow as performers. I feel like I've like grown so much more over the course of this show than I have over the process of like any other music thing I've done, so it was really amazing.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I played a worker. I think everybody's already like said everything I was gonna say. I'm a sophomore, so this is only like my 3rd or 4th show with the high school, but it's my favorite, and I think it probably will stay my favorite because I made so many new friends, and it was really demanding, and the rehearsal was a lot, but it was so rewarding. Like, I don't know what else to say. Everybody's already said it.
That's all right. Both, did you have anything?
No.
Any questions, comments? Okay.
Yeah, so I teach in Saugus, and Will's counterpart in Saugus, told me like back in the fall. He goes, like we tried to get Hadestown, and then Will got it. So Wakefield's doing it, and I was like, all right, what's Hadestown? And he's like, that's some Greek myth thing. I'm like, all right. So I knew you were doing it, and then it came, and I think the opening night, people were like on Facebook, they're like, this is the most amazing thing ever. But everyone always says that about Wakefield Productions. So I was like, whatever. So we're going Saturday night. And, I've been in a ton of like musicals, like I did it my childhood and stuff. I'm just gonna say, like, we always come and say your productions are awesome. Like we do, right? It's like The Wizard of Oz, great. And don't get me wrong, those are all good. But this was really something. Choreography was amazing. Like obviously all the lead actors were unbelievable, but the choreography of the basic cast, I mean, it was phenomenal. Like it was really impressive. So yeah, you guys should be really proud. Like it was really good.
Yep.
Yeah, just to kind of echo what the other Kevin said, my experience just blew me away. And when I was in school here, I was in theater, so you have a tendency, you and your friends, to think it's never as good as when we were there. And generally speaking, I still hold to that. I think our shows were great. 42nd Street, Anything Goes aside, several years ago by Will's predecessor. So I went on a Sunday, the closing night, and I mean, Kevin summed it up. It blew me away. And I see a lot of shows, and again, I never think they're as good as ours were, and this was hands down the best show I've ever seen. From the acting to the singing, the set was gorgeous. I can't believe a student designed that. The costumes were amazing. I can't believe a student designed that. I mean, just the skill and the choreography, everything about it. I'm kicking myself that I didn't drag my friends with me. So last weekend, a bunch of us got together, just a couple days ago, and I had mentioned to them, like, because once in a while they'll come down and we'll go see a show, and I'm kicking myself that they didn't join me for this one, because it was really amazing. So thank you for bringing such great performances, and I'm glad you're having the experience I did when I was in theater, which makes it so powerful. Whether it's the greatest show ever or it was just a really fun time, it's just the power of being in these sorts of experiences. You articulated so well, and good luck to those of you going to school for this. You're very talented. I look forward to seeing what you do next. So thank you very much.
That's great. I would ask, Will, could you just tell us, I'm curious, how many students sort of took part of this?
We had 26 in the cast and 30 on crew.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's our biggest number since COVID.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Bouncing back a little bit.
That's brilliant. So I would echo what was said. I love just the whole, all of the shows that were picked this year were on a theme. So going back to, we saw the Shakespeare show, which was amazing at the Savings Bank. We missed Minotaur because I was going to take my kid, but then I was informed by a cast person that it might be a little spicy for a 12-year-old. But so we rushed to this one. And it was just what everyone said. My family goes, we attend a lot of musicals in town. We're just kind of that family. We listen to like ERS on the weekend to like Standing Room Only, and that's in our car often. So we're big theater folks. And my kids are critics about like anything that we go and see. And they were just blown away by everything that was on set. I think they could not stop talking about the letters. They couldn't stop talking about your use of the boxes and how in every different configuration they formed a thing. Your point about how hard you worked to harmonize with the Fates, you wouldn't have known that. It seemed like you all had been singing together for years. I didn't know that you worked that hard. You did it perfectly. And then everyone else's role. You played a perfect Persephone. And at first we were wondering because, and so my kids are pretty deep into Greek mythology, and so just to see all of those actors come alive in a modern sense, and how you walked through sort of the eras, the time span, the trick of having the string of lights come on at the end was just genius. It was amazing, and so yeah, just hats off to a fully. It could not be more evident about how hard you all worked, and that was an absolute gift I think that you gave to the community. To have that high caliber of a show. Everybody went away talking about it. And I think it could have gone, you could have played that at Emerson, you could have played that at the Lang, you could have been at Opera House. That was stunning. So to every single one of you that put time in, it was time well spent. And I think we got it back in spades. Just really well done. And so I'm glad for the seniors that you went on such a high note. You'll probably be talking about this for years. And try not to brag too much to your college roommates. They're probably going to get sick of it after month 6 when you keep it. But just absolutely brilliant job.
So I just have just 2 comments and a question, right? And so my comments are, first, the music, the live music being played, and watching everyone adjust real time when it didn't always happen at the same time in the same way. Everyone kind of moved. You couldn't, like, it was just beautiful to watch. The music was, like, amazing. I was sitting with some other administrators, and I think we were all kind of in awe. So that's one of my comments. The other comment is, how do you outdo this, Will? Right? Like, good luck with that.
We have plans.
And the other kind of big question that kind of I'm struck by as I'm watching you and listening to you speak, what is it like to go between, because I'm listening to you talk, right, into a microphone, it's like, I'm thinking, are you a little, could it be possible that they could be a little shy, right? But, so my question is, what is it like to kind of put on this, so you become this person, and it's completely consuming, and then you kind of revert back to your regular lives? Can you share a little bit about that?
I can speak on this one. As someone who does a cappella and theater and all things music, I feel like there's just this thrill when you're on stage. You kind of just let go of who you are as like a person, that like awkwardness and shyness, and you kind of just like really feel the music. And if you love it, like you kind of just let go of like all those insecurities and thoughts, and you kind of just forget like about like those negatives. Like you just really enjoy yourself up there, and that's what helps you get through it.
Yeah, I agree with Naya. Like, I feel like I'm much more confident singing in front of people rather than talking. So like, I'm just used to like being able to be confident in that more than this.
You would have been more comfortable coming here and singing tonight.
Oh, for sure.
And did I did hear you say that you learned your instrument as part of this role.
Yeah, all did.
You didn't play guitar ahead of this.
Not at all.
And I
That's,
learned accordion.
You did?
Yeah.
that's, I was wondering that. I'm thinking, how do you, did she play it as a child? What type of punishment is this? And so it's like brilliant. Brilliant. I can't believe it. Amazing. Amazing. So you guys crushed it, right? Crushed it. So congratulations to you all. Congratulations, Will. Good luck to the future of the future groups, man, because they have their work cut out. So nicely done. Thank you so much. And thank you for making time to come. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Will.
We're going to be moving chairs back up to the table.
I know, right?
We welcome our coaches, our coordinators, and our reading specialists. You want to come up to the table to share a little bit about intervention?
I know.
You guys are really excited about reading tonight. So while they're setting up, I'll just give a little context.
Come up here. Enough? Do we have too many chairs?
Oh, too many. Too many. Yeah.
We teach reading. There was nothing to read. So, just to introduce the group, we have a few members of our reading team today. Some members couldn't make the meeting tonight, but I did want to just highlight the entire group of our humanities coordinator, Val Drynan, our humanities coach, Michelle LeBrecq, reading specialist, Maria Morgan, reading specialist, Kathy Holland, reading specialist, Allison Smith, and reading specialist, Suzanne Garrity. Also not present tonight, our reading specialist, Mary Penta, Karen Purba, who am I missing? Reading intervention. Trish Root, Maureen Marr, Julie Ward, and Christine Martin. So that's I wanted to make sure I just recognize the entire group, because that group was recently honored at WEF with an Impact Award because of the work they've done throughout the last 2 years. They've really been digging in, working together, working with consultants to really analyze the work that's happening across our elementary level. We've come to you a lot and talked about what we call our Tier 1, our general education initiatives related to the adoption of EL education and foundations that is happening across all of our general ed. Well, our reading specialists come into play when there are students who maybe need a little bit more than what general ed has to offer. And so we've been spending a lot of time talking about when and why a student should be referred to a reading specialist, what that support should look like, how it connects to gen ed, how we're progress monitoring, and this group has just been instrumental in that work. So that's all I'm going to say tonight. I just really want to just say how lucky we are to have them, and just thank you again for the great work that's happening. So tonight they're just going to go over, we'll do a little background, we'll try to move through pretty quickly, and then give it an option for questions either throughout or at the end.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Kara just gave a really nice intro to the starting what we were doing here. So our main focus tonight is really on the reading intervention, but we just wanted to give a quick overview recap of where we're at as far as what's happening in all the classrooms related to literacy, because this directly connects with that work. So
Did I go
So, no, you're good. We didn't cover too many of our talking points yet. So there's two components. So you may have seen this rope picture before if you've come to Parent University. Maria, Michelle, and I did a session, or if you've visited our website. But really, this exhibits the two components, or the two categories of skilled reading. And so there's a component around language comprehension and a component around word recognition. And I'm going to have Michelle share a little bit about what we do in Tier 1, which is Tier 1 is what we refer to our classroom instruction, so what all students get in the elementary classroom, K4. We can move to the next slide.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Oh, sorry, you have the clicker. I was like, I don't know where the clicker is.
Oh, and then you have like animation in here too.
So we're going to start by looking at the curriculum that we use to support the bottom strand of that previous slide. So these are the three curricular resources or tools that we use to support the development of our students' foundational skills. So you see that we have phonemic awareness curriculum, which is called Haggerty. We use that in grades K through 2, and highlighting about this curriculum, it's all an oral curriculum. It supports students' development of their ability to hear and manipulate sounds and words. And then we move on to our foundations curriculum. We have foundations in kindergarten through 3rd grade, and this is a very explicit, structured, systematic approach to teaching students phonics, and you can see all of the variety of concepts that are taught in foundations. Then we move on to a curricular resource called Geodes, and Geodes are what we call readables. So these are texts that aren't completely decodable. They're about 85 to 90% decodable, and these are texts that students are able to expand their vocabulary, expand their content knowledge, and have the opportunity to practice the phonics principles that they're learning. It's where they pull it all together. So. And we're also going to talk about I'll talk about the top strand of that rope, the curriculum that we use to develop students' language comprehension skills, and that's our EL Education Core Curriculum. It addresses 5 elements of language comprehension, background knowledge, vocab development, language structure, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. It's very expansive. And then additionally, we support both language comprehension and word recognition development with Boost Reading, which is a supplementary digital resource that students are using. So with that, I'm going to pass it on.
So the next part here, we just wanted to go over just the assessments we use in literacy, because that is what we use to identify who receives intervention. So about 2 years ago now, back in July of 2023, DESE put an early literacy screening regulation into place. So this mandate went into effect in July 2023. It requires that all students be screened twice a year. And so in Wakefield, we actually screen our students 3 times a year. We do a beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of year assessment. It also requires that families that have students that are performing significantly below grade level are notified and are informed about what is being done to support their child. In Wakefield, again, we decided just to inform all families. I know that's been a big topic of conversation over the last few years, so we send home on all 3 benchmarking periods, the Dibbles family report and the iReady family report in grades 3 and 4. And so I'm actually going to pass it over to Sue right now so she can explain a little bit about what early literacy screening is.
Hi there, I'm Sue Yarity. I am a reading specialist at the Woodville School. And you've heard about early literacy screening. It's really, I'd like to think of it like a temperature check. It's a screener that all students take. So if you are a kindergartner, every single kindergartner in the school will take the exact same test. And we want to identify the students that are at risk for reading I don't know if I want to say failure, but for reading difficulties. So it's the first thing we want to do is we want to know who our riskiest students are. And we do it proactively. We do this at the beginning of the year, and then we determine what measures, who needs intervention, and what supports the classroom teacher needs to give them. The skills that we do, they're 1 minute or 3 minute tests, are predictive in nature. So, for example, we know that phonological awareness or ability to hear sounds in words is a predictive skill. So we assess that, and we know that the students that show that they have some difficulty with that, then we intervene right away. And not Woodville, but Wakefield uses the DIBELS, and it stands for the Dynamic Indicators for Basic Early Literacy Skills out of University of Oregon. Very well respected assessment. I'm sure there's lots of other things I can say about it. I could talk about it all day, but I'll leave you with that.
Whoops. Hello, my name's Allison Smith. So we assess with DIBELS, which is our early literacy screening, 3 times a year. We assess in the beginning of the year, we assess in the middle of the year, and we assess at the end of the year. We also have iReady assessment, which assesses the upper part of the rote, that language comprehension, and that is done right now currently with grades 3 and 4, although next year we are moving it to K-2, which we're looking forward to. I know the teachers are, we are as well, and that will also be done 3 times a year. It is currently done 3 times a year with 3rd and 4th.
Okay, so I'm Kathy Holland. I'm the reading specialist at the Greenwood School. After we collect the data and we analyze it, we meet with a school-based team, and that's composed of the grade level teachers, principal, school psychologists, MSN teachers, speech pathologists, and OT. And we meet to determine who will participate in an intervention group. A letter is sent to the families, and that starts our communication with them, which is super important. The students are progress monitored either every 2 to 4 weeks to make sure that they are responding to our teaching and that there is growth. Thankfully, from the Hill for Literacy training that we had this year, we know now how to shift our instructional focus as needed based on that data. We could use manipulatives to scaffold. We've learned to explicitly teach with lots of opportunities for the students to practice and give corrective feedback. In addition to those 3 benchmarks that Allison mentioned, we do have 2 other progress monitoring meetings in the year where we come together as a team to examine the data and determine next steps with the classroom teachers, and to make sure that that the skills that we're teaching in the group transfer into what's happening in the classroom for these students. In terms of talking about aligning our work, each classroom utilizes high-quality instructional materials. Allison talked about the Tier 1 instruction being in the classroom. We provide Tier 2 instruction and Tier 3 instruction to kiddos in our interventions, which is typically in a small group format. In Tier 2, it could also be the classroom teacher meeting with a small group to work on those foundational skills. What's important to note is that when we're working with students, they're not missing the core instruction that's happening in the classroom. This is not in place of, but it's more in addition to, in order to target those discrete skills that the kiddos might need. We do it typically during a time called WIN, which stands for What I Need. And based on and what had happened in the past 2 years that Val talked about was the Hill training, which was the professional development that we've had, helped to really align our intervention services across the schools. Our data team meeting process is more consistent. Our entry criteria that we use is consistent as well, and we have set guideposts that we use in order to determine who will be in our interventions. And as I mentioned, it was through our training with the Hill that we have the consistent structured literacy interventions using what we've learned as the Hill 10-step lesson plan.
Thanks, Kathy. And so this visual here just kind of gives a little bit of a snapshot of what we do for each chair of instruction that Kathy just mentioned. So yeah, I think you heard the principals talk earlier this year about our updated data meeting process in the schools, and they've talked about the wind block as well. And I think one of the things that we put into place this year with the guideposts was we have a consistent starting point. So our guideposts look at 3 benchmarking periods, so it's not just the student's current score, but we go back 2 benchmarking periods in addition. So we can look at trends as far as their performance. So the Dibbles has blue for well above grade level, green for at benchmark, yellow for below benchmark, and red for well below benchmark. So those we look at, were they red for 3 periods or red, yellow, red, and then we also look at their overall percentiles and how they compare to other students. And so those guideposts are our starting point for the data meetings and capture most of our students that are the most at risk, as Sue shared earlier. However, the data meeting process, which we are continuing to refine into next year, is really an opportunity to look at kids that maybe don't quite meet that guidepost, but we have questions about, right? So the real consistent data meeting structures are important part of this process and this alignment. So the green there is all the stuff Michelle talked about. That's what every student gets. The yellow, we kind of break into 2 categories, as Kathy said. It might be an intervention from a classroom teacher. It might be additional practice opportunities with the foundations materials. It might be some really targeted lessons on the boost reading or the iReady reading instruction during the wind block. And then when you get up to that next tier of yellow, that's when usually this group kicks in and does more of a small group intervention. And then the red, we might be adjusting something to be more specific in instruction, or a smaller group of instruction, or increase the frequency of the instruction. So the tiers get more and more specific as we go through the process. And Michelle's going to elaborate a little bit on that. For our Wakefield assessment.
So I love this visual because it encapsulates a lot of what Kathy said and what Val has said. It really shares the recursive nature of the assessment cycle that we follow here in Wakefield. And we've talked briefly about all 5 of these steps already this evening, where it's vitally important to identify students who may be at risk with a universal screener as step 1. But then step 2, it's really where this wonderful team of reading specialists dig a little bit deeper into the needs of those students that are more at risk with assessment tools that are diagnostic. So they might give a more detailed phonics screener to identify particular areas of need. Then these awesome reading specialists work with the classroom teachers to really plan what that targeted intervention is going to address, and then put into practice the intervention. Step 4 is where we evaluate in an ongoing manner with progress monitoring how students are responding to the instruction, and if our instruction is really targeting the most specific areas of need, the highest leverage area of need. And then step 5 is based on the results of progress monitoring. We might make changes by adjusting a lever or continue with the current plan. And it's just completely recursive in nature. So it's taken a while for us to land on this, but it's working quite well, we feel.
So that little step 3, 4, 5 in the previous slide, the planning for instruction, implementing support, and then the evaluating student growth, and then making changes. So the approach we're taking to do those things is a structured literacy approach. So structured literacy is how we build word recognition skills. And so these 4 evidence-based teaching principles are what we use to teach word identification and decoding strategies. So the first one, explicit. So explicit instruction, if you think of a continuum from explicit instruction to discovery, struggling learners and novice learners benefit from explicit instruction. So once skills are attained, you can veer over to that discovery side, but for kids who are struggling, it needs to be explicit. So explicit means it's interactive. So we've been learning about how to, as Kathy said, we've been aligning our practices and making sure that our lessons are similar across the district, and then each one is interactive. So learning just things like all kids should be responding instead of just one kid responding or going around and taking turns. It gives kids maximum opportunity for practice. And then lots of opportunity for feedback. So within the lesson, like in the moment feedback, and then keeping a perky pace. And I think Suzanne will be talking about the lesson plan we use. And
I was going to say.
I know. But there's modeling, she'll tell you. The point is, like, these are all the good things. The things she tells you will do, these are all the good things. Modeling, guided practice, independent practice, deliberate, spaced practice for retrieval of information, systematic and cumulative, so it's a sequence and it builds upon previous knowledge. And then it's diagnostic and responsive, not only in the sense of, we're doing the progress monitoring like Kathy mentioned, but also in the moment. Like I said, we can assess right in the moment, and we can adjust our instruction right in the moment, and so that response comes during the lesson and then after the lesson to plan for the next one. And we're using Dibble's progress monitoring. I already said that. And yeah, good.
Awesome, thanks, Maria. So as Maria and Kathy both mentioned, we have had a partnership with Hill for Literacy for the last 2 school years. So this work began right as the early literacy mandate went into place. And so last year, over the course of the year, classroom teachers participated in 4 PD sessions about aligning small group instruction and how to do targeted small group instruction in the classroom. And then we continued that support this year through coaching from Hill for Literacy. So as you know, Michelle is our district coach, and we have a coach from the Hill that coaches us on how to coach here. So she's done some work with us and the reading team and the classroom teachers this year through those coaching cycles. The reading team has really been the key team in this work. They have had monthly meetings with our consultant. We're together for 3-hour chunks of time, and we really dig into our practices, the data, how to progress monitor, when to progress monitor, when to adjust our assessments, and then the big push this year was to really implement this systematic approach across the district. So last year was really kind of a learning year, and this year has been a let's hit the ground running, and next year will be continued to improve. So Suzanne's going to talk about the lesson format.
When the student does reach us, we are all doing this 10-step lesson plan, and that we have done all this work with the Hill for Literacy. And we have really fine-tuned this, where we have had I don't know if you know Eleni by name, but Eleni has been the rep from Hill who has come and said, okay, we're going to work on sections 3 and 4, and I'm going to model it, and then you're going to do it, and then you're going to watch, and we're going to critique you, and all of this to really fine-tune. And it has been really enlightening because, like Maria was saying, even things like immediate feedback to a student who you don't wait until the end of it. You tell them right away when they make a mistake, and you model it. That has been a change in our practice. The whole structure of the lesson is we model it, I do it, then we do it together, and then you do it on your own with immediate corrective feedback and lots and lots and lots of opportunities for practice. So that is interwoven into the practice. It's like Anita Archer says, like a perky pace. You keep it going, and you keep it moving, and you don't talk a lot, like I'm doing right now. And that's another thing that was difficult. That was a change for us, or at least it was for me. Keep what I'm saying to the minimum. It's more important what you are saying. So, yeah, that's the lesson.
Okay. We use decodable text towards the end, step 8, if you want to get specific. But decodable texts are books that are even just any text that has carefully incorporated words that are consistent with the phonics principles and the phonemes that we are teaching.
They are used for the application of skills. If you want to think about it in a way of like a sports analogy, like a basketball player will spend a lot of time drilling and doing his layups and practicing his dribbling, but at some point they have to scrimmage each other, and the decodable text is really the scrimmage where they get to apply all of the skills that we are practicing. They can be used to reinforce what they're learning in foundations lessons and throughout our interventions. Students can read them independently to practice after explicit teaching. Some things. So what really brought us here tonight was we were digging into some data. So Senator Lewis came to visit a few months back, this team and some teacher leaders, and had asked this question of what data do you have that shows this is working outside of what we can tell in the MCAS, right? So that kind of sent us down a rabbit hole of like, what do we have right now? Like, let's take a look. And so this chart here, I'm gonna explain it carefully because it's kind of hard to follow if you don't know what you're looking at. So if you start on the far left where it says above benchmark at the top. So this data is all the students, so 350 students, came in the fall of 2023-24 benchmarking period. Blue, so that means above benchmark. The visual is how many of those students stayed blue in this most recent benchmark period. So we're looking at students that scored above in fall of 23-24 to where those same students scored in our most recent benchmark in January of this year. And so 350 of those students came in above benchmark, and you can see the breakdown below that 274 of those students remained above benchmark, 66 of those students are still at benchmark, and then 10 of those students are now below benchmark. So if it was a second grader, they're now in third grade mid-year, right? So, and then that is the same format for each of the following graphics. So the next one over, those are the students, 294 students came in the fall of 23-24 at benchmark, and you can see 91 of those moved to above benchmark, 145 stayed at benchmark, and then we have some 48 and 10 that moved below benchmark. So that kind of was our students that started at benchmark. The next two are the ones that directly tie to the work of this team. And then I'm gonna give a little summary of what this all means. But the below benchmark group there, 192 students came in fall of 23-24, scoring yellow, below benchmark. And now you can see about 50% of those students that came in yellow that fall are now at or above benchmark. And so that last group there, the red group, those are the students that came in well below, significantly below benchmark, 161. And you can see, God, my numbers are too small for me to see. About 40% of those students, sorry, not 40%, about 12% of those students are now at or above benchmark. That is a huge highlight because students that are coming in well below benchmark, it is going to take them more time to catch up to grade level than a student that came in yellow or came in at grade level. So our next step from this data is to look at the students who came in above or at benchmark. Who are those students that now came in at benchmark and are now below benchmark? So we can use this group to help target what's going on here, right? And also reflect on our Tier 1 instruction. So our classroom instruction, that has been a big piece of this work in the curriculum review you heard about last year, where we implemented EL across all classrooms. We had shifted away from units of study and implemented foundations, as Michelle said, up through third grade. So that was a new, 2 years ago, that foundations came up to third grade. So this is giving us some like early data, right? We still have work to do, but early data that's showing these things that we have put into place so far over the last 2 years are showing growth. So we're excited to look at the same data in a month, right? We start collecting that in a week. So we'll be looking at that before the end of the school year to really identify. The other thing that is really great about the systems that we now have in place is we can identify this spring students that we need to look to put into groups right in the fall. So we can hit the ground running right in the fall and use that fall benchmark data just to kind of firm up anybody else who we may be caught along the way. So that is what we have tonight.
Can I add on something that I don't think we've mentioned, is that this is the first year we've actually had a district intervention assessment team. So we are now, we've received training, extensive training, using how to, learning about the DIBELS, which is what we use, and how to use that in the most effective way. We've had, Eleni was part of that. We shadowed each other. We had lots of different opportunities to do that partner kind of work in looking at the most effective way that we need to be sticking to the protocol, so that now it's this team is highly trained and we go as a team to the different schools to do that DIBELS assessment.
Yeah, thank you for we did forget to highlight that. That was part of our alignment in the process of making sure we have the most accurate data. Because if we're going to use this data to determine who's at risk and who's going to get the interventions and who needs support from the classroom teacher, we want to make sure that the people collecting it are really highly trained and that it's the most accurate we can get. And I just can't thank this team enough, because there's just been so much work that has gone on in the last 2 years. And as we all know, change is hard. And so we've all had to work through this process together. And I think it's really helped us to build some trust and be able to really work collaboratively as a district, so we can ensure that, if you're at Greenwood or you're at Walton or you're at Woodville or at Dolbear, we're catching all of the kids across the district that are the most at risk. So.
And I just want to thank you all again, and just add to the bigger impacts of the district with this work. So we've talked a lot about alignment, consistency, equitable experiences in all of our classrooms, but also just catching kids early, ensuring that our kids are getting what they need to have all the tools they need to be readers. And one of the other benefits of this work is related to special education. So this group is almost like the first line of defense for students that classroom teachers might have worries about. And for them to be able to come in, align their intervention to what's happening in gen ed, we're ensuring that there's no curricular gaps or there's no exposure issues for students. They're collecting data, they're progress monitoring. So there are some kids that fall into that red bucket that will make their way to special education, but by the time they do, we have data to back up a pretty firm recommendation that the student may fall into a disability category, such as a learning disability. We're not, kind of making incorrect diagnoses for students. So this is really, really important work just for, the amount of kids that move just through the explicit instruction they received, and then are able to go back in gen ed, generalize those skills, and then continue on with their learning. Sometimes that's all, not all it takes, but it's what they need in that moment, as opposed to being inappropriately labeled. So I just wanted to show how all of the work connects, and just in terms of maximizing all of our groups.
Thank you so much. This is brilliant. Questions from school committee? I saw your hand up. Oh, go ahead, Kev.
So if you're in the yellow or the red, does that automatically qualify the student for Tier 2?
Great question. So it depends. So the guideposts look at the history, right? So if you have a student, for example, that was green, yellow, they might not go right off with this group, but they might get some additional support from the classroom teacher, or something specifically targeted on their individualized instruction, either through the iReady or the Boost. So it depends on how their benchmark history looks and the percentile of how they compare to everybody else. So we look at both the criterion reference and the norm reference points, which is the percentile that they fall in, and then where they score.
And it's a composite score.
Yes.
And then within that, we can look at the particular sub skills But typically, if they're in the red, we're absolutely going to be seeing them.
Unless they're on an ed plan already.
Unless they're, yeah.
But everybody in yellow or red gets something.
In IEP.
So,
And as she said, ed plan. Yeah, an IEP.
I have a follow-up question. So if you were in the red and the yellow, and then you move to the green, and let's say another cycle goes and you stay on the green, do you make the decision that that student, well, let's say the student had tier 2 services, do you move the student out of tier 2 in that case? Like after showing, okay.
That's why we progress monitor,
Got
to
it.
make sure
Got
that
it.
they're continuing to be strong, and also collaborating with the classroom teacher to make sure that those skills are being transferred into the instruction that's happening in the classroom, and also through the core foundational skills.
One of the, oh, sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
No, I just didn't know if you saw students kind of going in and out, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
sometimes.
or if it was, yeah.
So we have to think of it also that as they're learning, the demands are increasing. So we're there to be able to provide that scaffolding and to get in there and really provide that net, so that we're making sure the kids are on our radar and we're able to do this for them.
I just wanted to highlight, just to add to your point too, and Val had mentioned it, that we now have systems in place to ensure that every student who needs intervention receives it. And that wasn't always without systems to create criteria, to create guideposts. You have, people get worried about students and then they're competing and you're not sure, should I discharge, should I not? Do I have the data to show? So now with things that are so tightly in place, it's very clear to everyone involved. It's clear when a student would get picked up by the reading specialist. It's clear when a student would be discharged from the reading specialist. And so we're able to move groups, kids in and out. And our goal, we'll get there, but I think it's all, as you said, this was all of our goal, but I think we would love to see that, reading intervention, that we're getting these kids early, and that, by the time they go to the Galvin, there's not necessarily, unless they're on an IEP or need specialized instruction through reading in that way, that we're really getting kids what they need at that the elementary grades where they're learning to read.
Alex, I see you had a question.
Yeah, it just was about, and I was probably not here for when you talked about the updated data meetings. What was that? What did that look like? What did your data meetings look like before, and what's the difference now? Maybe just if you could sum it up in a couple of keywords.
Great question. So actually Sue was on this team, Michelle and I were on this team, Brian Schmidt, the Walton principal, and Lisa Connell, the special ed teacher from Greenwood. We had a team last year that was funded through a DESE grant called the MTSS Literacy Leadership Team. So what that did is it had us reflect on our systems, and part of that work was to look at what we were doing at data meetings at each of the 4 schools and figure out if we were consistent or not. And what we found out was we were actually very inconsistent on how we were approaching data meetings at each building. They were all happening. Each building had a process. But I think to what Kara was saying before with we didn't have clear, consistent entry criteria. We are working on some exit criteria now. That's something that we're working on as a team right now, as the system has just run through this year for the first time. And so it was all different everywhere before. Now what we are doing is what Kathy said earlier, all the classroom teachers, all the reading specialists, the special ed teachers, the principals, curriculum team members. We have 2, we have a STEM coordinator, STEM coach, and then Michelle and I for humanities are working together, looking at our data meeting process. This year we did try it during our after school meeting times, and what we found was we just did not have enough time. So tomorrow we actually have a principal meeting to plan for our schedule for how we're gonna do longer times next year. So we're looking at longer data meetings so we can actually have the conversations that Kathy was talking about. So the process would be to look at the students first that meet the guideposts, so all our students that are red and yellow, and then the ones that meet the guideposts specifically over the benchmarking periods. From there, making sure we don't have any outliers from the guidepost. That would be the next step in the process. And then once we ensure all of those students have a support in place, then looking at the rest of the students in the classroom and what do they need. Are there students that need some more extension? Are there students that need just a little extra practice or need something from the classroom teacher? So the rest of the meeting time would be spent looking at the students that aren't going off to a reading group and what they would be doing during WIN. So that's where like the classroom teacher kind of comes in at all levels, right? Because they're looking at the guideposts with the reading team and then also sharing if there's anybody else that they're worried about that doesn't meet those.
Can I add on to that? Excuse me, that it's giving us quantitative data. So, and we know that that Dibbles is being used as a screener, and we have those numbers. So it's not, well, I think it might be, I'm kind of worried. It's we have the actual data to pinpoint those kids, and then in talking with the classroom teachers, the kids that they're noticing in different areas that might need support, we can have those conversations around concrete data.
There's a couple of just follow-up questions with that. You mentioned that those students that are in the classroom that are at or above, right? Like, what could we provide for them when this is going on? What does that look like? What is provided now for those students who are at or above to keep them moving?
Yep, nope, that's a great question. So we have, as part of the EL curriculum, there are text sets that are included. So the EL core literacy curriculum, that does the top part of the rope that we talked about earlier, is really it's a knowledge building curriculum. So it's heavily focused on like a topic. So in first grade, the beginning of the year, they do the most magnificent thing, and they learn all about community and habits of character and how to be good community members, and then they end in building their own most magnificent thing. So throughout this, it's grounded in that book, in that text, but then there are additional texts that are related to the same topic. So it's all about tools and what tools can we use. So there are books about math tools and science tools, and so they really get to choose other books that maybe are at where they're at, right? So like there's different, I don't want to say the word levels, because the word levels feels bad to say right now, but meets them where they're at, right? And so there are different, there are different levels of the text that, yeah.
So those different level books that you're talking about, those are provided within the EL curriculum, that they're already there, they come with the...
There's text sets that come in addition to the core books that are there. So in the curriculum are grade level text, so everybody's has access to the grade level text, but then in the text sets, there are texts that go below grade level and texts that go above grade level, so that way as students are working independently, they can do that. We are still working with classroom teachers. We're looking at coaching cycles next year in how to continue with additional writing opportunities. Like there are prompt-based writing prompts as part of the EL curriculum. It's the other part of the, okay, so we talked about the foundational skills. EL has a skills block that has additional writing prompts available in it, right? And so that is something we have been starting to look at with teachers when you are looking for additional opportunities to extend for students. Can we pull from that? Can we pull from their accountable independent reading, which is another component of the EL curriculum? So it's a work in progress right now. It's something we've been talking about during PLCs. It's still, I can't say where we want to be with it yet, but that's where, yeah.
And additionally, during the WIN block, where all students are focused on instruction and working on something that's targeted to their individual needs, we do have Boost, which is a digital supplementary support that's individualized. So students who are reading and writing above grade level, the work that they're doing in Boost or the iReady is going to be targeted to their level. So it's specific to what they need.
Can I add too? That WIN block is so important. So when I started, we didn't have a consistent WIN block, but so we're pulling our kids that need reading intervention during the WIN block, but my kids that need reading intervention should not be, they should have as much access to the rich language building and the content knowledge building that they're getting. And the core, some of my kids, I feel very strongly about this, and they need that extension that you're speaking of just as much. It's just that they also need this, foundational literacy skill work as well. So, that WIN block is key, and I think everybody needs that extension. They get it through the core.
And I think the knowledge building curriculum gives that opportunity as well, right? So for the third grade, everybody talks about this frog unit, right? We came and presented about that last year too. So everybody loves the frogs. And so they all research these specific frogs in the curriculum, and then they write about a frog of their choice. But I have seen teachers do a fantastic job with giving students opportunities to either explore a different animal, but using that same type of research context that they just learned in the close reading protocols, the writing structures, the graphic organizer using. So they have opportunities because of the content, like because there's like it's not really a theme, but like because it's grounded in a specific topic that they get to know a lot about. There's a lot of extension opportunities. We had a class last year at Dolbear. We had the first grade had a weatherman come and do the morning wake up because they were learning about the sun, moon, stars, and the kindergarten was learning about weather. And so there's a lot of enrichment opportunities that really the kids get so excited about. I don't know. There's I could go on because there was a second grader that corrected a tour guide at one of their field trips, I was told, because they knew about pollinators, right? And then the one, I think they said, oh no, that beetle's not a pollinator. And they're like, yes they are, and this is why. And they were able to like talk all about why a beetle's a pollinator. So yeah.
Dr. Lance.
So thank you so much for coming and sharing tonight. It's much appreciated. To be able to come in and have the courage to say, we weren't doing this with consistency in the past. And one of the things that I heard, I think each of you talk about in your own way, in the content that you were covering, was you talked about your learning, right? I've heard the explicitly referenced 3 times, right? Our learning, our work together, our learning, what we are learning. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about that, because from my perspective, if the people make the place, right? And it's like good curriculum doesn't equal good outcomes, right? Good, it's not enough, right? What makes this work is you all, right? And leaving what you were doing to learn something different, to do something new, is not an easy thing to do. But it looks, you make it sound remarkably easy, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Say a little bit about it. So my training before I came here, I was certified in Orton-Gillingham. And the Orton-Gillingham method is the discovery method. That is what it is. And so, you would let the student know, what do you notice about this pattern? What do you see? And they are led to figure it out. And that is not what we're doing. So as much as I love so much about that OG method, and there's a lot of things that I think are wonderful, that part of it is a big shift for me. So I am not saying that. I am saying this is this word and this is the sound that it makes. Say it after me. Like that, very direct and very explicit, not discovery at all. So that was a big change.
I think it's easy now, but if you saw me 3 years ago, when we were first looking for to switch over curriculum with EL, and I did not have the same, attitude. It took a little while, but I think, with all of the learning that we've done and how everything's so systematic and it's all data driven, it's just opened my eyes, and it's I'm excited again about teaching. So yeah.
There's, people talk about a pendulum swing of like, oh, everything's whole language, and then now we're switching too far back to phonics. But I think the difference now is that we have science, like we have brain research that tells us. And I think for me, that has just been so helpful because I feel so confident in what we're doing and it's right. And I think as teachers, that discovery model, like, you want to do that, right? You want to be in the class and the kids are discovering these things, and there is the place for that. This sounds boring. It sounds like unfun. You would think that the kids wouldn't like it. You would think that it would be a drag to teach it. And so we had a PD, and it was with general educators, and then we went into a breakout room, and someone said something to that, oh, this sounds really boring, sounds like the kids. And I'm like, actually, because I leaned into it because our schedule was so crazy. I was like, this is the only way that I can get through all the stuff we need to do, and that I can know, like you said, Kara, like, I want to know if a kid's going to go on an IEP. I want to feel like that's right, and I feel better these days because I feel like very confident in what we have given them up to that point. So I said, actually, the kids are so motivated because they're reading and they can read and they have something to do and they can attack the words and they feel so good about themselves, and it's not guessing and it's not all this other convoluted stuff. Like, they know and they feel good, and I feel good, and it is great, And I've tried to learn forever, but nothing was ever so, you couldn't rely on anything as much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, like Sue, I also was trained as a dyslexia practitioner, and I think that having this opportunity to work with the Hill and be part of the professional development, first, it's allowed us to have commonality in our pedagogy and what we understand of best teaching practices. And also to have similar conversations because we have a similar format that we're teaching. I think it's always great to have the opportunity to, learn and continue to evolve and take in what best teaching practices are and what it might look like. Might be a little bit different, but it's basically the same thing. We're all going towards that same goal. I also think that having that, we talked about that, being more consistent as a district with the coming together as a team to collect the data is huge, because it gives us, again, common language and it's consistency, and it's, we really need that, and we're able to really work as a team to kind of get that big task of assessing all the kids in the school and look at it through the same lens. So I look forward to continuing, to be a learner and, moving forward with everything that we know and we've learned.
That's great. I know parents, with many of our parents, there's a tremendous amount of anxiety, especially with a first child, around, the kind of the benchmark of learning to read or being kind of quote unquote on track or on time. And the screener, I think, sometimes can be jarring because it can make you wonder, what does it mean? Is my child behind? What do I do? How might I respond? I'm wondering if any parents were watching tonight. This is a recorded meeting, right? If any parents were watching, we never see all of you in one place at one time, ever, right? But I'm wondering...
Actually, once a month at Galvin.
It's a cliche, great point. But I'm wondering what gentle advice you might have for parents that might get information from a screener and might just be wondering, oh my gosh, what does this mean? What do I do? Right?
Can you talk about what we do with Reading? Because I think that's important.
So this has been a big topic for our team of how do we help so that people don't panic, right? And I can speak because I had my own child get their data, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, don't panic. I just switched over. So I think, I think a year ago, we might not have as confidently been able to say, yeah, we have it. We have your child. We know we are catching the kids, right? And I think now, with all of this work we have done and all the systems that, like Kara was mentioning, that we put into place, I think we all can confidently say, we don't feel like we are missing kids anymore. And we have really we've reworked schedules for people on the team to make sure we are supporting across all schools the highest needs students. So I think I think we are all more confident in saying, yes, we know we have this. And then in addition, we have been talking about how do we help parents understand what they're seeing when they get that letter, right? And so we did do a session, Kathy, Michelle, and I partnered with Reading. So Reading Public Schools also uses the Dibbles. And I was talking to their coordinator, and they were having the same thing, oh my gosh, every time we send home data, parents start panicking, understandably so, right? If you see a score that comes up red or yellow and it's your child and you're like, oh my God, what do I need to do? When do I panic? When do I not panic, right? And I think, so we had put together a recording that lives on our Wakefield Public Schools website now on the curriculum tab that is an info session for parents about what each of the indicators means, what it means when your child scores red or yellow or green or blue. And that was one thing. And then Maria and Michelle and I did a parent university session back in March. Was that March? That was obviously not recorded because that was live and in person. But similar questions, right? We talked a lot about the systems we have in place now. And so we could, be able to more confidently say, like, if your child is scoring in red or scoring in yellow and we have sent a letter and they're in support, we can tell you that they're getting structured literacy, that they are, that we're monitoring them. I think Kathy said this earlier on, right? I think you talked about or asked about this, Alex, about like, how do we know like where the kids are making the progress? And so it is part of that mandate that if a student is scoring well below, we progress monitor them every 2 weeks. So, and this team is the one that does that. And then the students that score in yellow, we progress monitor once a month. And that is the baseline, but if we have a student in yellow.
Even if they're not ours,
Yes.
we
Yep.
do it.
Yes. So every student who scores red or yellow gets progress monitored on a regular timeline. We've had some students where we've had more questions about, so we increase the frequency of progress monitoring. So just because that's the baseline doesn't mean, like, if we have a student in red that we're more concerned about, we could weekly. If we have a student in yellow that's scheduled for the once a month, we could do them twice a month, right? There's no saying that we can't progress monitor them more than what we are. So I think that is a big piece of it as well. And I know I visited the Walton PTO. Brian had asked me to come to talk about what we're doing in literacy there. So I know we're looking at trying to figure out how we can get to, Maria has mentioned the CHAC that we could connect with. And so I think we're thinking about next year specifically looking at some school-based info sessions, because I also feel like when we have school-based sessions, like the turnout in your home school sometimes is a little more than a Zoom, it's a little more personal. So we're looking at how we can expand that as well. But for now, there is a video on the website on the curriculum section, and we're continuing to think about ways to inform families. So.
Thank you so much.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like with parents in the past, if they have gotten a report home and they are in panic, I think the best thing to do is just to reach out to your teacher and your reading specialist. I mean, I think that if the parent comes in and says, this is what we're concerned about, and this is our plan, and we're going to progress monitor them, and we're going to come back, and anytime you want to know more information, I think that is probably the best thing to calm parents down.
The other thing too is, and I try to help walk parents off the ledge, is that the Dibble scores this is the first time that we have been sharing them, and they're really it gives a great lens for parents to understand that their child, is going to be in an intervention, but it's also to inform our teaching. And sometimes what happens is you might see that kind of the child go in the different colors, or the graph might change, but we're I think we're pretty confident that we're monitoring, we have good structures in place, and if there are concerns, to of course always reach out.
I'll just add, I am not someone who says like, I don't think it's like that school's got it and we got it, parents. I'm big on parent-teacher relationship and partnership, and parents know their kids best. So I will always encourage parents to trust their gut, but we're here, and I think the difference this year, maybe compared to a few years ago, is like Val said, I think we're pretty confident that we can't ignore, that's not going to happen. Not that we would, but we can't inadvertently ignore, and we will have a plan in place. And parents should be, as engaged as they can be with that. Michelle's telling me I'll send stuff home, kids who come to my intervention, we have things we can send home to parents, and I'm a parent, and I know some things work and some things don't, but I think since COVID, I have a very different relationship with parents. I mean, we were in the trenches together with our parents, and now I value them so much. And I always did, but to a different degree. And I value my kids' teachers so much, so. Yeah.
It's all prompted some really good discussions too about students, both with parents and teachers. So. All right, any other questions? Yep, go ahead, Alex.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
I haven't asked one yet.
Oh. I'm not in a place to call him. I don't know why.
So I would first just make the comment that thank you for all of the important work that you do. I think we talk about this, and we have seen you've talked about the frogs, like Poirot's reading to me is one of the most fundamental first things where kids hit the school system and find their grit and find their ways to work through things, and you're the people that help shepherd some of those that are having struggles, and that feeds them all the way until graduation day. It is critical for all of the other work that will happen and all of the other subjects, whether it is history or math or whatever, it's reading first. And so just thank you for being there, for catching them, and for casting your net as wide as you do. It's very important, and you know that, but just a sincere thank you from sort of the parents that sort of have students in district. I do know that on occasion, some reading specialists have been asked to, they've engaged kids that are reading at above grade level. And I think that you can sort of flex in that space also is just, you just teach a mosaic of sort of our students. And I just think that's wonderful. To go back to the graphic that you had shared, Val, and I have to admit, it confuses the heck out of me.
I know, it's a hard one.
If I'm reading it correctly, it's what it was up top, and then how it changed is the colors, and then what it is now is below.
Yes.
And so what I read from it, if I'm not incorrect, is that you're mostly directing towards interventions. And so you're mostly meeting kids that are in the red and the yellow, and I'm seeing in absolute stunning growth in those places. It seems like we're doing absolutely great work there. And I see, but once we get sort of at benchmark and above benchmark, you don't necessarily see the same level of growth. I'm thinking because they don't get interventions because they're at benchmark. And then, but I do see numbers of kids that fall off of those marks. There are kids that do come down from being at benchmark. There are kids that do come down from being above benchmark. And so what is the general trend for once you sort of get kids out of the trenches, these little like ducks, and you put them like up on a shelf and you're good to go? Like, how long do you watch their progress to see if they need to kind of come back in for?
Yeah, so we're constantly watching the progress. I think the other piece that we did not talk about tonight, and we've really hyper focused on the dibbles this year, is the iReady piece. So like Allison said, we're going to be adding iReady to K-2 next year because that was an area that we felt like, especially for the kids that you're talking about, we didn't have enough information to be able to inform what we were doing. So the iReady looks much more deeply into comprehension, vocabulary, language skills. So that I think is going to help us with exactly what you're talking about, really targeting these kids who are already above or at benchmark and figuring out how to extend them further. iReady includes extension opportunities, so not just in the online instruction, but also in response to the data that they get. So the diagnostic will give teachers lessons that are lessons to extend for the students that are above and lessons to support for the students that are below. So I think we are very excited about adding that in K-2 next year because we feel like we do have that in 3 and 4, and there are some really great tools in there. There's a report called the grade level scaffolding report in grades 3 and 4 where like when they're about to teach main idea, for example, they can look at what are the prerequisite skills to main idea. Are there any kids that need support with that? Are there any kids that need extension with that? And then what can you do? And it groups them for that purpose. So I think that is going to help us. I think we're still early on in our implementation of our core curriculum, right? So we always, last year we called last year year 0, right? Because we technically gave a few different options and everybody opted in, but everybody was very nervous about saying we're fully in year 1 because we're like want to like make our way through this year. So this year is our official year 1, really year 2 of our core literacy curriculum. And now that we are going, so we have the EL leader team, which really is support at our grade levels. We create a pacing guide together that has built into it extension activities, language skills. So that graphic organizers, the protocols that are in the curriculum, and we're continuing to build that. So that's something we'll continue building over the summer this year in the summer work. So I think we haven't capitalized yet on all of the resources that we have because we are still so new to them, right? And so I think now that we've been through 2 years, we are really feeling like we can dig deeper into the curriculum resources and how to better utilize both the extensions and the supports in there.
So when you talk about sort of having access to that data, and if it's already, are you able to sort of set thresholds? Like, let me know if anybody sort of at this tier sort of falls back down and for how long, so that you don't necessarily have to be as on top of individual students as much. You don't necessarily need to pull the information as much as it gets pushed to you. Does that give you that mechanism?
That kind of happens in the progress monitor meetings, to be honest. So like that's like, so like Kathy said, so like we have the 3 times a year benchmark, and that's when we have our data meetings. But then in between each of those benchmarking periods, so about every 6 weeks, we also have progress monitoring meetings where we're looking at, did anybody dip? Did anybody come out? Did anybody come out and go back? You know, and that's what we're trying to prevent the go out and come back, right? And that's where we're really looking at our classroom instruction and the coaching in tier 1 as well.
Yep.
Did you want to add
No, I was
Okay,
just going to say, and even just like, who is that student and what is happening with that student in their life at that particular time, and was there an illness or, you know, anything, because we look at the numbers, but we also have to look at
the student. I saw that with the above benchmark, because the number that fell below is a small number, and I start to think about there could be other sort of socio issues with that number. It's not necessarily a trend line.
Exactly. And that is for the most recent benchmark period, so that doesn't capture the whole history. So these kids could have started in blue. Maybe those 10 kids were all yellow for this benchmark, but they might have been green last period, you know, like, and so like that's where we have to really dig into who are those kids and what is, like Sue said, what's happening? Was it a bad day? Was it a trend? Is it something that's falling off like consistently, or was it just a fluke that period? So this report is kind of like, it's a stagnant report because it's comparing 2 benchmarking periods, but we can do this for any benchmarking period, right? So like we can look at where we started to where we are at the end of the next year. We can do 1 each time, right? It's just another way for us to look at the data.
It's great. I'm excited about the growth and to see where this goes and how the team is so much more cohesive now. And I think the strengths will absolutely sort of get pulled out. I think your points about sort of frameworks and giving kids ideas to sort of build on that in addition to what they're already doing, I see sort of in my kids and in other sort of kids. So I know that that's working. And I will say, just anecdotally, I have seen my student that was above benchmark grow in being above benchmark, and so I know that sort of within the systems that need is being met, and so growth opportunities do continue, and that they don't necessarily they don't stagnate. But that was kind of my curiosity, is what does happen as kids because they can move through this. It's not always a linear progression. So it's great to know that sort of you have all those tools you need to sort of keep that the eye on those kids, and that it's an interesting discussion amongst you. I know I can hear it, so that's great.
Well, I think to what Doug asked, right? Like the change has not, like, I don't know. I think it's been emotional, right? Like I think we've cried, we've laughed, we've had honest conversations, I think, throughout, and I think now that we're finally starting to see some of the work pay off, that's like, that's what energizes everybody, right? We all want all of our students to be able to read. We all want everybody to be successful. And so I think when we start seeing that it's working, even we shared this at one of the ILTs, and the teacher's like, oh my God, so what we're doing is working? We're like, yeah, like, it's early still, right? So like we're not where we want to be yet, but the early progress is starting to show, and I think that energizes you to keep wanting to make those changes and learn it and keep learning more. So.
Thank you. I will just one last comment is just that because you touched on it with Hill and with just listen, just for those that didn't know, you all, the last time I think I saw you together was at the Woodville School, where you gave a presentation on the status of this work, because I believe the senator was sort of holding us up as a model to sort of some other districts and Hill with the work and the partnership that's going on. So I think that's also just a fantastic achievement to sort of be doing the work so well that others can be modeled in that way. So, thank you. Sorry, Alex.
So I just wanted to ask maybe two more questions. And I just have I'm always looking to learn when it comes to literacy. When I have the opportunity to have literacy experts in front of me, I'm going to take as much advantage of that as I can. So within DIBELS and progress monitoring, and with the students that you pull out for intervention within the WIN block, how micro do you get with the skills based on DIBELS? Like, as you're pulling groups, you're pulling similar groups, do you do this is a group that's working on phonemic segmentation? Is this, what does that look like? How micro do you get with that?
I'll let you guys
Very
answer that.
micro. Very micro. Allison and I work in the same room along with another reading interventionist, and when we look at things, we literally each day look at that data. It's up on a tab in our computer, and we are looking at exactly all of the subtests, and we colored. We're told that we're going to get
I'm
help
going to
with
teach you how to do that.
but we color it, and we all our progress monitoring. So I know exactly these kids, they're read in phoneme seg. These kids need to this, or these kids need that, and we're always talking about it and always looking at it and making sure that they are as cohesive as possible. You might have a student, I have a kindergarten group that has one student that I think is a leader in that group, and they need more repetition, but the other students might be lower in something, but they're still together, and I'm still well aware of the higher student versus the lower. But we're always looking at that.
And each element of the Hill lesson template, the 10 steps, each element of each step is directly aligned to the subtests of DIBELS. So if you have a student who is having difficulty with phoneme seg, that step 3 in that lesson template is something that you're going to hit home hard. So it allows you to really hone in.
And so the last question I'll have, I promise I'm not going to.
Did you like
We're trying to be sure.
Was with the you talked about not missing any students earlier, right? As far as the students and the historical data, I know you can, iReady has kind of a mechanism for that you can look at historical data. DIBELS, you can as well.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking at is, do you have a kind of a mechanism or somewhere you can memorialize not only just historical data, but the interventions specifically that were used with students from year to year to keep that track, because we know, the benchmarks move, and you may have students fall in and out, and then going towards the end of the year, they may fall below, and going into the following year, you want to not just start all over again, like another teacher starting from scratch.
Yes.
So do you have a mechanism for that?
Yeah, great question. That is something we put into place this year. So that was one of our first meetings this year at the Galvin, like Maria said, where we're gathering together. We're like, we really need to figure out how we track how often a student gets intervention, how many hours of intervention a student has received. Just thinking about the whole process, like Kara said, that goes to special ed, right? So when they're looking at evaluating a student, they want to know how much intervention has the student had. Have they made any growth based on that intervention? Has the intervention been changed, right? And so we put into place an intervention tracker this year that we use consistently across the schools again, and we are looking at, as a next step, how to kind of memorialize what's also happening in the classroom, right? So we have that now in the reading intervention, and we're kind of brainstorming ways with some of our teacher leaders about how to capture that so it can be passed on also in the classroom. So did you want to say more about that?
I'm thinking you talked about how micro do we get on the skills. I mean, I feel like with the 10-step lesson plan, we really are hitting everything, and what used to happen is we would kind of be like, all right, we need to do this with this kid, but then, I don't know, I would talk to my colleague and I'd be like, oh, but I never do dictation, or sight words, and I just feel like we're able, like you said, we can go strong on the thing that they really need, but then we're not missing all those other things. So where you're talking about, well, are we memorializing, what things we did with the kid? Yeah, because we're all doing the 10-step lesson plan, so we know they've all got that. And then in terms of the data's there, we've got the historical data, so I feel like it's maybe easier to do than one might think it would be. Yeah, and I don't think we're spreading too thin. I think we're doing right, because I know with first graders, we used to always say, oh, they need everything, they need everything, they need everything. And we're able to do all the pieces now.
I think too, like knowing the foundational skills and how important they are. Like you know about phoneme seg, and kids learn to read speech to print. They're not. Our brains aren't wired to learn to read. Our brains are wired to recognize faces, and we're actually doing that rewiring. It's kind of techie, but the rewiring of the brain through these Hill lessons have that phonemic structure through it, whether it's through the blending or the segmenting. And then, of course, we're teaching, extending it through the decoding, reading decodable text, and then in the dictation. So it's all there, but it's all, I think of it as like laying the foundational skills for building the house. And if you're starting up here, you're not going to, you've got to start down there and make sure that that's firm and stays firm. So throughout that lesson plan format, we're making sure that we're hitting all of that and keeping it strong.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We good?
Thank you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's different having people in person, I have to say. It's much more engaging. You can see the interaction, how well they work together, the teamwork.
Definitely.
So I love technology, but that was different than...
I agree.
So thanks. I'm really grateful they came in.
It's the best of it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maria. Thank you, Sue.
There's no way we're asking those questions
Right.
if they're not here. There's no way.
No, but it's just much more...
Whenever they're on screen.
It is. We're
Yeah.
finding ourselves saying, we understand with schedules if Zooming's easier, but ideal is a person.
Yeah, that was a
you
totally different
definitely-
experience.
Yeah, great. Thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah, love to see the cohesiveness with the team. All right, moving on to item number 10, chair's comments. The first bullet would have been our committee reorganization and election of officers, but we actually have a policy in place that says that we can't vote on officers unless everyone is here. We voted that in, I think, 2 years ago. And so the thought was that, seeing as we have 3 members that are absent, we will not be reorganizing tonight. And perhaps not the next meeting either, because Dr. Pescadlo may be in Chile. So good for him. And so we'll find time to put everybody in new seats. So long as I think subcommittees can just stay as they are, unless anything sort of pressing sort of comes up. Past that, second bullet would be, we have received a open meeting complaint to school committee. It is centered around our minutes. And I think there are some other things about our Zooms and sort of where some meetings might take place. There are a couple of different layers, and it was brought by somebody in the community. Having reached out to sort of, we have a number of sort of counselors at our disposal, legal counsel, and so between those, we got some feedback from Tom Mullen, which is our town's counsel. And so he has agreed to sort of help us through this process. And so he has some scheduling challenges in terms of he has some personal time coming up. But I told him that we would definitely be able to sort of engage his services. We just need to, as a body, sort of agree that we are going to ask Mr. Mullen to sort of take on this sort of legal matter for us, this complaint. So I would just ask, I would move that the school committee allow Attorney Mullins the ability to respond on our behalf to our open meeting complaint.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Dr. Pescadlo?
Will we get a copy of that complaint?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And Attorney Mullins had just asked that I inform him on like sort of who would be germane to the topic.
Sure.
So, and then he of course would have access to pretty much all school committee members if he felt like it was relevant. Alex, you may be a little bit excused from this, having been the most recent person. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, those in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Well, thank you all, and I will communicate that to Attorney Mullins probably tomorrow, and we'll get on the same page with that. All right. Moving on to item number 11 is subcommittee reports. Finance and Facilities. Mr. Markham is not here. Neither is Mr. Davis. I sit on that committee. I can just say that we have not met since our last meeting. I believe we are scheduled to meet sometime before our next meeting. I think one of the highlights of Finance and Facilities that the town did indeed at town meeting pass our school budget. So thank you to everyone that attended. So that's pretty great. Other than that, I think in that meeting we might talk about, I think we were talking about maybe having a discussion around the financial substance of like that school choice proposal that had come up. So we'll see what comes out of that. But again, I think we need to get it on the books, but it should happen before our next meeting. Labor and Personnel, Dr. Piscadlo.
Great, thank you. So continuing to work on a number of different contracts. We updated the committee today that we're looking to complete the contract with the Wakefield Administrators Association, and some of the FSME units should be coming shortly. We as a subcommittee did meet for negotiation sessions with the WEA Unit C on the 8th, so last Thursday, continuing to kind of make some proposals and counter proposals on a couple of the outstanding matters before us, but making some good progress. Our next session is going to be on the 21st, and that's next week at 5:30 in Galvin.
Great, thank you. Student Services, again, Student Services has not met since before. I think the last thing in that queue had been school start time, which administration is off and running with. And I think that body is waiting probably for the reorganization before it would meet again for new matters. For Policy and Communications, Mr. Davis is not here, nor is Ms. Quinn. And do you also sit on policy?
No.
Who else sits on policy?
Eileen. Who's gone.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Just jumped in.
That's right. Okay. So in light of that, I was wondering if Dr. Lyons, if I know that the books are there and we have read through Code of Conduct and the facilities. I've read them, but in our agenda, I was wondering if you could give a quick synopsis of what these sections are for the available motions so that we can vote on those motions so that they can be added to our policy book so that MASC can host it for us.
Of course. So, so tonight we're looking to lay on the table Section E, which I don't have the title for that section of the book, but E and H, I can look it up. They're in the packet, and we are also looking at kind of amending or editing. Section F was accepted, but what came to our attention was that some of the naming, how we name different facilities and how we memorialize things, has to be, it's done in conjunction with the town council.
Yep.
So we've made edits to the 3 policies in Section F, Section FF, FCB, and FFA that align with those tasks of naming facilities, retirement of facilities, as well as memorials, right? And how we're going to name those or make any adjustments to those. So we've made edits to those 3 policies. We've shared Section E, Section H, and the 3 edits with council to kind of to get those squared away as a double check, right? So, so what happens is the Mass Association of School Committees has provided us feedback on model policies. We look at those and read through those as a subcommittee, and then we have our council take a final look. So council has taken a final look at Section E, Section H, and the 3 sections from FF. Again, the book Section F has already been accepted, but we're making the appropriate edits to Section F due to feedback that we've gotten. We've also gotten some feedback on the code of conduct from council, and they have checked that out, and we've made a small edit there, and so so we are looking to lay on the table or make a motion to lay on the table policy book Section E, policy book Section H, the 3 sections that we're editing from the policy book F that has already been accepted, and the edits also to the code of conduct GBEB, formerly denoted 701R.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that rundown. Kevin, I believe we have some motions.
We do. Move that the school committee lay policy book Section E on the table for 2 weeks' consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting on May 27, 2025.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? I would just comment that, so the 2-week comment period would leave members of the public, if they wanted to reach out to school committee members and have some feedback for this policy. That would also, you know, any staff that wanted to have some feedback. I know that code of conduct was has already been sort of talked about with WEA. But, and then we will, in theory, come up for a vote, these policies at our next meeting. So, okay. Motion's made and seconded. Those in favor? All right, that is unanimous. We have another one.
Move that the school committee lay policy book Section H on the table for 2 weeks' consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting on May 27th, 2025.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? No. Seeing none, those in favor? That is unanimous.
Move that the school committee lay revised policy book sections FF, FCB, FFA, naming new facilities, retirement of facilities, memorials on the table for 2 weeks' consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting on May 27, 2025.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Unanimous.
And move that the school committee lay revised policy section GBEB/701R, Code of Conduct, on the table for 2 weeks' consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting on May 27, 2025.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? All right, unanimous.
I would like to add one thing.
Yes, Michelle.
Just that in the packet, the documents show edits
Yes.
to them. So you, okay, so they'll be at the following meeting, they'll be clean and finalized.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Moving on to liaison reports, if any. Any liaison reports? Yes. Kevin.
The ESC is meeting tonight during this meeting, so I'm not there. But we are meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and I think Dr. Lyons is joining on the call about looking at the electrification of buses. So we're meeting with WMGLB, and yeah, and there's an outside group that's coming in that basically is going to be talking about possibilities.
WMG, who?
The Municipal Gas and Light Board.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect.
Right.
Gas and Light Division, WGMLD?
I think it's B.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Cool. I mentioned, I think it's happening before our next meeting. The HRC is having a food truck, like an Asian sort of celebration. I think they're going to bring food trucks to the Miracle. I want to say it's on it might be this weekend. Might be the 18th. So that'll be fantastic. Yeah, I think that's all that I have. Future dates and agenda items. Next school committee meeting will be Tuesday, May 27th at 7 p.m. Kevin will be in Chile. That will also be the date where we have our public session for our school choice proposal. It will be up for public comment. That will be published in the item. If it hasn't been already, it was
I think it was sent
tomorrow.
Probably this afternoon, so it should be in tomorrow's paper.
Awesome. We're looking at our next meeting to get internship updates, which sounds exciting, and then accelerated math at the middle school, which maybe we'll get in as much time as we did with reading intervention. That'd be fantastic. All right, and are we going to have the attendance update from Frank?
So Pete had asked if he could get an update, and I don't know if that's an entire meeting update or if he's looking for it personally. I can send him the data personally.
Okay, we can talk as we're forming the agenda. If he's thinking that we need to talk about it, we could talk about it. Otherwise, he can just get the info.
I also think we have about 8 things for the next agenda. So 4 might be great, 8 might be too much.
All right.
Unless we're going to go for a while. He'll be in Chile. So.
Yeah. Are you nervous because reading intervention went so long?
No, not at all. I think that was an important topic, and I think it needed the airtime. Right? And so I think tonight worked out beautifully.
Yeah, it's well done.
We have world language curriculum review. I'm sorry. Did you say that that's slated for the 27th as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have an alumni directory kind of proposal that we're working on. So there's a number of items.
Things going on.
Right. So there's the list that has come up, but then there's additional items.
Okay.
So so we can share the whole list and just prioritize and just split it over the next 2 meetings.
That's fine.
I didn't know about
Yep. That is absolutely fine. Okay.
You zoom in.
Kevin, I don't know if you can go to Chile.
School committee comments. Seeing none, we'll keep it light. I think we have a motion for adjournment.
Sure. Move that the school committee adjourns this meeting of Tuesday, May 13th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? All right. Thank you all, and we will see you at our next meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, WCAT.